Hey, how's it going everyone? This is YLAM here. In today's video, I want to talk to you about some suggestions and some tips and tricks about balancing your camera. This is something that's already covered inside the DJI Ronin app, but I just want to give you some suggestions while you're doing this because there are definitely some things that you can do better to help make this process a little bit faster. So the first thing that I do want to talk about is you needing a lot of patience in order to do this because it can be a little bit cumbersome setting up your gimbal the first time, especially if you're new to this, because there's definitely a lot of things that you have to balance in order to get the gimbal working correctly. Now, there are definitely a couple of things that will make that process a little bit better, chief amongst which is if you actually choose a setup that's actually very easy to set up. If you look at this setup right here, this is actually a very difficult setup because the lens is really heavy. It's also heavy in the front, and there's also a lot of mass on the back of the gimbal because if you look at the center line right here, most of the camera body is actually in the back, and then there's plenty of mass in the front. What you want to do the first time is actually to choose a camera system that's actually very compact and everything's actually well situated together. So in my recommendations, if you want to actually start off, you would probably want to start off with an X-T3 and one of the compact primes because it's going to be very centered together, and that overall is going to make it much easier to balance. The next thing that you want to look at is the type of gear that you want to put on this gimbal. You need to have everything set up the way that you want it. So that includes the cabling, the audio equipment, the tilt of your lens, and also if you're going to be using a zoom lens, what zoom range you're going to balance at. So for me, I picked the center range so that I could have a good balance if I actually want to move the zoom range left or right. So that's something that you really need to look at for your zoom lenses, is that you need to find kind of the medium point in terms of weight balance on your zoom lenses, and then from there you can balance your camera. Another thing that you want to think about ahead of time, I'm just going to move this around here, is your overall headspace, because if you want to move the gimbal to where you can actually flip it all the way to the end, you're going to have to make sure that it can actually has enough headspace in order to do this. For this particular case, I should not have used the hot shoe. Instead, I should have put the audio gear probably somewhere down here, kind of jury rig a system in which I can actually go ahead and move the gimbal system above the hot shoe, but that was a short-sightedness on my side, so that's something that you really have to remember when you're actually balancing your gimbal. Alright, so let's go ahead and actually talk about balancing your camera system. So what the DJI app is going to tell you is that you want to adjust your tilt first, and then you're going to want to adjust your roll. My suggestion to you here is actually at the very beginning, is you want to adjust tilt and roll at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the camera system and we'll take a look at that. So inside the DJI guide, what it's going to tell you to do is it's going to ask you to lock off the panning position, and it's also going to ask you to lock off the roll position, and then you would adjust the tilt. You're going to adjust the camera back and forth in order to adjust the tilt where it's going to be perfectly balanced. My suggestion here is actually to unlock the roll axis as well. So when you unlock the roll axis and you have your camera on there, what you want to do when you actually loosen up this back part, which is going to allow you to adjust both the camera release tilt and also the roll. The roll is this position right here. The thing that I would tell you is that what you want to do is you want to adjust your roll and also your tilt to where it's going to be roughly balanced correctly, and then you can lock off your roll axis to fine tune the tilt axis. The reason why I say this is because this is actually going to help you fine tune your tilt and your roll much quicker, trying to get a rough estimate on what it's going to take in order to have you balance on the tilt and roll. Once you're roughly there, go ahead and lock off your roll axis. Make sure you adjust your tilt properly. Then you can lock that off, and then you can fine tune your roll axis and make sure that your roll axis is actually fine-tuned as well. The reason why I say this is important is because the gimbal system is asymmetrically designed. Your pan axis, when you actually adjust it, can be affected by your roll axis. If you're slightly off on your roll axis and your tilt axis, what it's going to do when you're actually testing the balance of your gimbal is that your pan axis is going to throw a needs balance. It's not going to be balanced correctly, but it's going to have nothing to do with your pan axis. It's actually going to be a slight adjustments that you need to be done on your roll axis or your tilt axis. So that's something that can be very frustrating to figure out when you first work with your gimbal system. Alrighty, I think I have a rough adjustment, so I want to make sure that all of my positions are unlocked. I'm going to go ahead, turn on the gimbal, and then from there, make sure that I connect it to my app right here. And then I'm going to go ahead and tilt this to about 20 degrees. Then I can do a quick test to see if this is going to be balanced or not. So as you can see right here, it can tell me that my tilt and my roll is good, but my pan needs a little bit of work, which is a error that actually occurs quite a lot. A lot of times though, when you have a pan error, it's actually not a proper balancing of your roll and maybe your tilt. So even though it says rebalancing of pan, sometimes it could actually not be the pan, but it could actually be the roll. So it's a little bit deceiving when it comes to this app and its balancing. So there you go. This is a quick balancing. As you can see, all axes are telling me that it's actually good to go. So this thing is perfectly balanced. I'll try to tilt it to the other side to do a double check on this. This was actually a very quick way of doing it. I'm kind of surprised that I actually got it to balance this quickly, but as you can tell, you start to get really good at this over time. So that's really all I have for this video. If you have any questions, definitely leave in the comments below. I'll do my best to help you, and hopefully you'll have a unit that's ready, good to go in no time. I'll see you in the next video.